Imagine this. You're at a store. You see something you want. Maybe it's a new pair of sneakers, a gadget, or a jacket you've been eyeing for weeks. You check your wallet. You have maybe $10 in cash, so you put it back and walk away. Now imagine the same situation. Same store, same item, but this time you have a credit card in your pocket. Suddenly, it feels possible. You don't even think twice. You tap the card, you walk out smiling. Here's the question nobody asks in that moment. Did you actually become richer between those two scenarios? No, you didn't earn more money. Nothing changed in your bank account. The only thing that changed was the feeling. And that feeling, that one psychological shift, is exactly what's quietly draining millions of people's wealth without them ever realizing it. Most people think credit cards are just a convenient way to pay, like digital cash. You buy now, you pay later. Simple. And on the surface, that sounds harmless, even smart. After all, the banks market them with reward points, cashback, airport lounges, and a shiny piece of plastic that makes you feel like you've arrived somewhere. But here's what nobody tells you in those glossy advertisements.
Credit cards weren't designed to make you wealthy. They were designed to make you spend more. And they do it not through tricks or fine print, but through something far more powerful. They exploit the way your brain is wired. The uncomfortable truth is this. The moment you switch from cash to credit, your brain enters a completely different financial reality, one where spending feels painless, where limits feel invisible, and where the consequences feel so far away that they barely register. And by the time they do register, the damage is already done. Let's understand what's actually happening inside your brain when you swipe a credit card. There's a concept in psychology called the pain of paying. Researchers have found that when you spend money, especially physical cash, your brain actually experiences a mild form of discomfort. It's almost like a small emotional sting. And that sting is a feature, not a bug. It's your brain's way of making you pause, of asking, is this worth it?
When you hand over a $5 bill and watch it leave your hand, that pain is real. You feel the loss. But when you tap a card, that pain almost disappears. There's no physical exchange, no visual reminder of what just left you. Just a beep, a receipt, and a good feeling. The brain registers a purchase, but barely registers the cost. Studies have even shown that people are willing to pay significantly more for the same item when using a credit card compared to cash. Not because they're foolish, but because the psychological friction is gone. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Credit cards also create something called mental accounting distortion. When you have a credit limit of, say, $1,000, your brain subtly starts treating that as available money. Not borrowed money, not future debt. Available money. Your sense of what you can afford quietly expands, not based on your income, but based on your limit. And so you start living a lifestyle that isn't funded by what you earn. It's funded by what the bank is willing to lend you. You upgrade your phone a year early. You eat at nicer restaurants on weekends. You book that trip without really doing the math. None of it feels reckless in the moment. Each individual decision seems reasonable. But slowly, month by month, the gap between your earnings and your spending grows, hidden behind a minimum payment button and an outstanding balance you keep meaning to clear next month. Here's the deeper psychology that makes this so dangerous. Credit cards create what you could call a wealth illusion. You feel prosperous. You feel like you have access. And because humans are deeply social creatures, that feeling matters to us. We want to keep up. We want to feel capable. We want to say yes to things instead of no. And the credit card gives you permission to say yes, even when your financial reality is screaming no. But there's something else happening too. Something about time. When you spend cash today, the consequence is immediate. You see the number go down. The feedback loop is instant. But when you spend on credit, the consequence arrives 30, 45, sometimes 60 days later, in the form of a bill you'd honestly rather not open. Psychologists call this temporal discounting. Our brains naturally value things in the present more than things in the future. Pleasure now, pain later. And credit cards are perfectly engineered around this weakness. The pleasure of buying? Immediate. The pain of paying? Delayed, spread out, and buried in a monthly statement.
And so what happens? People accumulate debt gradually, comfortably, one convenient swipe at a time. Not because they're irresponsible, but because the system is built to make accumulation feel normal and repayment feel optional. The most dangerous part isn't even the interest, though that's brutal too. At 36 to 42% annual interest on outstanding balances, credit card debt is one of the most expensive forms of borrowing that exists. The most dangerous part is the lifestyle inflation it enables. The slow, invisible expansion of your spending that permanently raises your baseline, so that even when your income grows, your wealth doesn't. You earn more. You spend more. The card limit goes up. You spend up to it again. And the cycle quietly continues. So, what do you actually do with this information?
First, understand that the goal isn't to demonize credit cards entirely. Used correctly, they can genuinely work in your favor. Cashback, fraud protection, interest-free periods, these are real benefits. But the key word is used correctly. And using them correctly starts with one simple rule. Only spend on your credit card what you already have in your bank account. Not what you'll have, not what you expect, what you have right now. The moment your credit card spending stops being backed by real money you own, it stops being a tool and starts being a trap. Second, try a small experiment. For 1 week, pay for everything in cash. Not because cash is magical, but because you need to rebuild that pain of paying. You need your brain to feel the transactions again. Most people who try this are genuinely shocked by how differently they spend. Third, never pay only the minimum. The minimum payment is designed to keep you in debt as long as possible, while the interest compounds. Always clear the full balance. If you can't, that's important information. It means your spending has exceeded your earning, and no amount of reward points makes that a good deal. And finally, be honest about what credit cards make you feel. If swiping the card makes you feel wealthier than you are, that feeling is worth examining. Wealth isn't about access to borrowed money. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and what you do with that gap over time. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. The credit card companies aren't confused about how this works. They've studied human psychology more carefully than most of us ever will. They know about the pain of paying. They know about temporal discounting. They know about mental accounting. And they've built a product that elegantly works around every single one of those psychological instincts. That's not a conspiracy. That's just business. But once you understand the game being played, you can choose to play it differently. The question was never really about credit cards. It was always about this. Are you making financial decisions based on how things feel, or based on what's actually true about your money? Because feeling rich and being rich are two very different things. And the gap between them, that's where most people's wealth silently disappears.